Well, this is the fun part about two-part episodes is that second part. We had a lot of great discussion, a lot of great involvement, and a lot of momentum when we were talking to the NFC last week. So now it's time to jump into the AFC this week. So I know we didn't necessarily spend as much time on some of the trades as people may have wanted. I think we've kind of hit that tough period in the trade season where everyone's still kind of finalizing some evaluations or waiting for some of the picks to happen before they make some of these deals or get all the way back involved. But we power through, we prepare anyway. But nonetheless, I've got myself and Eagles on. We're going to talk through the AFC teams and kind of say from a playoff perspective where we are placing some of these teams, and then we'll leave the hottest of takes and I'd say predictions for next episode. And then after that, we'll be in the thick of the draft. So I don't know, RJ, you ready for draft season?
I am. I realized that today. I'm excited for this draft. So I want it to get here so that I can be on the clock.
Yep. And again, it's a constantly flowing situation where, look, I might have early picks. I might not have early picks. I might have 7 in the top 10. I might not have 1 to the 14. Like, again, I don't know how things are going to end up. Like I said, I've paid up for the 1, so I fully intend to make that pick. But we've seen people decide they want something and overpay for it. We've seen, other pivots. So we'll see what ends up happening. But nonetheless, a lot of those picks, except for one pretty major exception, have, I'd say, concentrated themselves on the NFC side of the ledger. But today we're going to talk the AFC. So, like we did last week, we're going to start from the West and go East this time because we normally start in the AFC North and go down on the league page. But again, we're going to switch it up because that's more fun to do. So, starting with the AFC West, we've got the Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, and Raiders. Um, I mean, this one, there's two teams that have pretty well declared themselves. Goose, which is going to continually do Goose things, and then a newer owner, which, I mean, still kind of getting his handle on the league, but seems to have a way he's, I think, kind of putting the toe in and going. And it's probably just waiting for the draft to make some of the next big deals there. So, obviously, I don't think we're going to be too surprised here, but it's the Chiefs and pretty much only the Chiefs coming from this division right now, right?
Yeah, I would definitely have the Chiefs winning this division. I don't think there's anybody that's really challenging them, at least not yet.
Yeah, and look, I appreciate what the Raiders are doing. He still has, I think, 15 and 17. Has been picking up some pieces around the edge, breaking down Charbonnet for Spears and some other things, breaking down Metcalf for Leggett and I think another pick. Um, Again, he's got Ingram. Hopefully, he bounces back. Um, again, there's a lot of hope as a strategy, but again, the other shoes got to drop with the picks that he acquired in some of these deals and what happens with the 15 and 17. So I could see the Raiders making a very interesting wild card run with what he's got in hand right now, or I could see him just saying screw it and selling some of these pieces during the draft. But the ceiling is probably the wild card competition, and that's kind of it.
Yep. He has 3 first rounders. He has 25 also.
Yeah, he got that, I think, in the Metcalf deal, right?
Yep. Obviously not as desirable as 15 and 17, but you can definitely see him,
Oh, yeah.
maybe either making those picks or, that's enough to go out and buy, at least some decent players on offense or defense or whatever he feels he needs. Yeah, I agree. I think the ceiling is probably like challenging for a wild card, but I don't really see him, beating Goose like in the division race.
Yep. And I think I've mentioned on a previous podcast how I appreciate what Chargers has done. A lot of teams will try and, okay, if I'm going to be a tanking team, I'm going to hang on to my pick just in case. And with a couple teams already pretty well dedicated to a race to the bottom, the Chargers traded their first round pick for next year and got a value for it that it's going to be tough for his finish to beat. So now he can just kind of focus on being young and letting value grow on his team and making deals with that value already banked. Again, moving Worthy and his future first for BTJ, who honestly is in competition for wide receiver one if uh, Cohen has the impact on the Jaguars offense that everyone's hoping he does. But that with a lot of other young pieces, and he's going to get a fresh run of picks available after our draft, and we'll see what happens. Again, he has too many holes to really make a move for this year, but this team is young and going to grow with him.
Yep, I agree. Bit of an unorthodox approach with not having the pick, but with not having his picks next year. But like you said, he's already locked in exceptional value with just using those to get BTJ. So I'm excited to see how he's going to build out. I fully expect this team to be one of those middle of the road teams, slightly below 500. And, we've said it before, you don't really want to be in the middle, but I don't expect him to be, the 16th best team for multiple seasons. I definitely think that he's on the rise.
Yeah, I'd say low teens or kind of edge of the top 10 is a reasonable target for him. But again, it's something you don't have to necessarily worry about. Hey, I accidentally snuck out a win because he's going to get a fourth place schedule this year. So he's going to get a couple of matchups, which with some tanking teams and other parts of the AFC, he's not expecting to get. And then he's got a division mate who is the most dedicated to tanking of anyone in the league, which is Bills Broncos, who seems to be at 9 first for next year and going to be just short of what he needs to try and make it 10. But again, 3 players still on his roster, Daniel Jones and 2 taxi squad guys I refuse to learn the name of, with the intention, I think, of challenging your lowest score record from a couple years ago. So, again, that's 2 wins for the Chargers, unless things change rather drastically, which, again, with Bill, that's not a zero possibility situation. But again, there's 2 there. He probably picks up 2 or 3 others from his schedule. So 4 wins, like I said, probably lands you in that range that we're talking about.
Yep. Oh, man.
And because he is the division favorite, I mean, we'll talk about Goose here for a second. Like I said, it's always fun for me to show Goose's roster to people who aren't in this league because they look at it and they say, who the hell are they for a bunch of those players? Or those guys are terrible. What the hell are they doing on a team? But yet you look at the point totals next to them and it's like, huh, yeah, okay, maybe I get it. Where it's like, okay, Jalen Warren's had a pretty good offseason, I'd say. Is looking good in at their situation, as is Stevenson. But Davis, again, is getting called out by Aaron Glenn as, hey, we have 3 backs who can carry the load in our backfield. That receiving court, from a stud's perspective, isn't going to catch anyone's eye, but I would put that receiving core as he has it right now up against any other receiving core in our league for who's going to score the most points. Because again, he can do it with 3 wide receiver 1s or 6 wide receiver 2s, or in this case, it seems like 9 wide receiver 3s will get you there.
Yep. Goose has always been unique with the way he builds teams, but that wide receiver group it is something different. I think you hit it right on the head. 9 wide receiver threes. Like that's interesting.
But again,
Darn.
it's just also funny. It's like, hey, these are players I'm not expecting to hear, or you see in kind of throwaway news beats, but then you hear like last week, I think I saw Sean McVay ashamed he hasn't used Tutu Atwell more. It's like, okay, that's a sign that I'm clearly following too much, off-season content that McVay lamenting his use of Tutu Atwell is coming up. But like, of course he's on Goose's team.
Yeah. Yeah, I like all of them. I don't think there's a single wide receiver that I don't like on that team, but I'm also not a huge fan of any of them. Just that group put together, you can expect double digits out of a couple of them every week.
Right.
Yeah,
And his
and
edge room, like eight edges in that room. And I I can't see the future, but let me tell you what's going to happen. Three of those guys are going to score over 150 points. Three of those guys are going to hit double digits, and two of those guys are going to be under 25 points this year. And I have no idea which is which.
yeah, and it is. Yeah, that makes sense.
And again,
Um,
Goose is out there offering and probably all of them for a late first round pick right now, as he should, because that's what a value that I was talking about of over 150 points for an edge of that contract value would fetch. But like I said, I couldn't tell you which is going to be which. And look, if you can, then you're going to be on a more successful podcast than we have right here.
Very true. Yeah, I like it. He rounds out the group with, somebody that's so unsuspecting, like a Jake Martin, but that guy's been employed for like 8 years. Like, just consistently finds play, consistently ends up being productive towards the back half of the season. Like Goose finds some interesting guys, and they're all productive in their own unique way.
Yeah, tis the Goose way. So again, the only concern would obviously be the news circulating about Derek Carr. I think it was kind of the hey, what's the cheapest 1 year starter I can get right now would be Derek Carr. But that being said, it's looking like he may not be a starter. So now it's a question of does he replace him and try and go get Spencer Rattler? Does he wait for the draft and find a way to go get Shedeur Sanders or someone like that if he falls there? Or does he make another swap here with the first that he has and go get it whatever the other quarterback he needs is to kind of round out that roster the way he has it after the draft. So again, that's the only major hole he has right now. But knowing Goose, he'll find Taysom Hill and two other guys to make that work.
He might need to be the guy that bets on Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Anyways, let's move to the AFC East. Same kind of situation. Like it's the Jets and the Jets have declared themselves as the winner. The Dolphins have declared themselves as the losers.
Uh-huh.
And Pats and Bills are just still trying to figure out where the hell they're going to end up. Pat's doing it by sort of having a collection kind of similar to what I'm putting together of youngins who haven't broken out yet or vets who are near the end of their careers but should definitely be producing. And Bills, again, has a lot of the really, really big name guys and then a chance to rebuild, but probably needs to lean into it a little bit to get there. I'd say Bills is really the AFC equivalent of the Cowboys, where he's got an opportunity to get out from some of these assets. And if he doesn't do it now, he isn't going to be able to do it. So, like, time is of the essence when it comes to Dak Prescott and TJ Watt and I think he has the end in Vegas as well.
Crosby.
Um, Crosby, yeah. So it's I I love Eric. I've met Eric in person before. Had a beer with Eric. Great guy. Um, would love for him to live up to the meme that he has in this league of how trade to make this team kind of go one way or the other here. Because also he has some picks to build around, but I think also has sort of that 12 team mindset of, hey, if I'm trading someone who produces like a Dak Prescott, I want a younger quarterback who produces like Dak Prescott. And it's like the old trade bait adage of looking for things that are going to be younger, cheaper, and score more points. Like, cool, you can get two of those, but if you get all three, it's because there's some other risk involved or you rip somebody off.
Yep. Um, I just don't want him to see every player on his team go the way of a Rico Dowdle, where yeah, he's probably going to be productive this year and worth something. But last year, when he was with Dallas, he was worth a good amount. Like, I'd imagine half the league would have paid handsomely for him. And I don't think he is anywhere near that value anymore.
Mm-hmm. And again, some of the stuff, it's like Zamir White last year with the Browns. It's funny to see him on the Browns trade bait because it's hey, last year he was probably getting second round offers for him because that was his value last year. And it's like, no, I'm going to hold and wait and see what happens. And now it's like, oh, yeah, maybe I can still sneak something out there, but the time has passed. So it's really to strike while the iron's hot. And Dowdle ended up in Carolina, I think, right?
Yes.
So
it'll be him and Chuba there, right?
mm-hmm.
So Chuba's probably the I wouldn't say the guy because they've always tried to bring somebody else in, and then Rico is the passing downs, passing pass blocker.
Yeah. So Dolphins obviously is swimming in picks. He has the cap space to be able to make, I think, all but one of his picks, unless he limits some of the contract length of his fifth rounders, which he very well could, to allow him to fit everybody in there. But again, he also has some interesting building blocks. Penix obviously is looking good. Rattler might be an extended lease on life here, and then has 6, 8, 9, has two or three other picks. Again, it's he's got pieces that if he wanted to trade for a team, he could. But I think right now he's more the, hey, let me do one more draft and kind of not worry about it. And then next year is the year he goes for it or starts filling into it. So no hate on him for that, but clearly that's not going to produce a lot of wins for him.
Yeah, I don't have the highest hopes. Even if his picks this year end up hitting, was it 6, 8, 9, 23, 32, 201, or 32, 33, 37? I mean, like that can add some decent value to the roster and some production. I don't see him all of a sudden like challenging Jets or anything like that, but it definitely can be a start to a decent roster that could, eventually be a competitor a year or two down the line.
No, absolutely. And again, he's building his team in, I'd say, the model of the Seahawks, where he's being patient. He's letting people kind of either pay for assets as overpays, or he's waiting till the point where he can maximize some of the value for them. So, can't blame him. I think that makes a lot of sense. But otherwise, I mean, we've talked about the East a lot. Anything else that we need to add there, or move to the South?
Yeah, we'll go to the South.
So I don't know if saying this is a little bit more interesting is fair, but look, the Texans are the team to beat here. The Jags could be if they leaned in a little bit harder, or could be completely out of it if they lean the other way, but just isn't. So it's probably Texans division. Colts is trying to keep up with Bill in the race at the bottom, and the Titans are slowly but surely moving that direction, but will have trouble selling off enough pieces to lose all the points. So, um, again, kind of a solved division already. Like the NFC, like I felt like has a lot more competition in it. Like the AFC has some real heavy hitters, especially when we get to the North. But frankly, like a lot of these are already solved.
Yep. We already know by the things that are, the assets that are accumulated, who is and isn't going to be a winning team for the most part. Um, I do think you said the Texans, right? This is
Yeah.
their division. Yeah, I do agree with that. I think this is the division where like everybody needs to do something. Like none of these teams are particularly, I don't want to say, yeah, they're not like the best looking teams. Like even Texans and Jags, like they need a lot of help. So, this is the division where I'd say all of you guys need to get active and like really start working on your teams.
Yep.
Other than Colts, I know what Colts is doing this year, and he doesn't need to all of a sudden start buying a team. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing.
Right. And again, I feel like Titans, it's like, hey, it's one of those like Titans, hey, you have offers. Like, oh, wait, okay. Like all of a sudden, have a flurry of activity and then disappear for another 10 days.
Right.
But I mean, look, Fields is for now the starter in New York. So Texans have a starting quarterback. They have Gibbs as a very capable RB1 to really build around there. Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith as receivers. He's got the pieces you need to start building around and score enough points. So now it's just kind of what he does from there.
Yeah. I would still critique it. He has 30 players. Like he needs depth. But yeah, that is probably the most complete team, or the front runner in that division.
Mm-hmm. All right. We left the not least for last. And look, I'm just going to be honest. Based off of how we've covered the AFC so far, all four of these teams are making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's really whoever finishes last in this division has to fend off the Raiders, the Pats, and the Jags. Like, barring a pretty major transformation, that's not a stretch for any of these teams. So it's basically, hey, the AFC North cares, but nobody else does.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like a horrible take to me. Um, I do agree. I would not be shocked if all four of these teams made the playoffs. Um, they're all really good teams. And is it Steelers the one that's finished last? And he's made probably the most improvements.
I don't know. What do you think, Commanders? It's I are we wrong? It's just the North is going to get 4 in, and then everyone else is going to have the division winners. Like, do you see it wildly different?
I really don't. I mean, the AFC, not to hate on the AFC, but the AFC's competition is thin, shall we say. You pretty much have a front runner at each division, and then nothing else behind it. So the AFC North is almost akin to the the NFC East. It's a whole bunch of teams that very well could be, they could lead a division or they could just simply make the playoffs, but they're all right around that range.
Right? It's like, hey, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed in the AFC right now. But again, the North is a different beast. It just cracks me up because it's you have 4 teams who nobody in this division would be hated on for. All right, I'm going to blow it up and kind of build because like look at my division. I got to build for the future because right now ain't going to be it. But
it's almost a Mexican standoff of who's going to flinch first, who's going to end up hitting the rebuild button first. And I'm shocked nobody has yet. But until then, it's going to look very competitive between those 4 teams.
Yep, they're going to just keep doing what they're doing. But like I said, we've kind of gone high level on everyone else because, frankly, that's what those divisions have called for. But I'm fine spending a decent amount of time with the North here. So let's start with the Steelers. They got some excellent news with the Joe Flacco signing by Cleveland again, where he now has to compete with Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson for that job. And by Deshaun Watson, I mean, he just still has a job there because they haven't drafted somebody yet. And then they'll make a big deal about cutting him and all that kind of shit. But right now, like, Flacco has the inside track to win and start real games there. And then he has Lawrence and Mullins to be his main quarterback and kind of the, handcuff on him. Brian Robinson, James Cook, give him a nice little 1-2 punch at running back. And I did not realize Amir Abdullah got 150 points last year. Like, that blows my mind. But again, that, like I said, that's very much a goose player for me. Same with Kayshon Boutte. 121 points is surprising to me. But hey, there it is. Mike Evans and Jacoby Myers finally has a quarterback. Jonnu Smith at 222 points in Miami. Again, holy shit. But then Dalton Kincaid should be something there. So the offense is certainly there. The defense is there with a little bit of depth needed. He's got $21 million in cap space and then some mid-round picks to continue to building out to fill in some of the gaps. Linebackers, the big concern I have here, because Devondre Campbell ain't shit, and the fact it's showing that he is on San Francisco's team is false, and he's not going to get signed for anyone. Like, it's one of those that if you truly quit on your team, like either midweek or mid-game and refuse to play, like nobody's going to sign you. So I guess what I'm saying there is he needs another linebacker, but again, it's not like he doesn't have pieces to go get some of those things.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Yeah, Devondre Campbell is probably done in the NFL. I would take the Joe Flacco piece with the recent news and parlay that into whatever value you can get now, personally, because Cleveland is, well, Cleveland. And things are very fluid over there, and I don't see him holding down a job for very long if he even does win that race. So I would parlay that into whatever he could now. But yeah, outside of that, he's got good running back. His wide receiver group is solid. Jacoby Myers is PPR darling. Tight end, I want to say Kincaid, underperformed last year. I think it's actually stronger than what's shown there in the points that we have represented. DT is good, but a little shallow. DE is reasonable. Again, yeah, I think the biggest knock is going to be his linebacker group. He's got to at least put some depth behind Jordan Brooks.
Yeah. And again, there's plenty of teams who have linebacker depth, but I don't fault Steelers for waiting for the draft on this one because while I don't see it as a deep linebacker class, I could see one or two of these guys messing with a team's depth chart, and then some of the I'd say day 2, day 3 linebackers that go are guys to keep an eye on to take a job midseason. So it's less about what's going to impact you day 1 versus what might impact a situation that by week 8 that guy's no longer the starter. All right. Moving over to Cleveland. Look, when we do the power ranks, it's the Browns and Bengals who are kind of consistently the quote contenders right now. And I mean, it's for good reason. Browns took care of their quarterback situation by getting Justin Herbert. He has Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, two breakout darlings from last year, to add to Alvin Kamara. AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin are a nice 1-2 for him since McLaurin keeps finishing as wide receiver 1. And, Khalil Shakir is there too. Tight end is a little bit of a concern. Goddard was in a lot of trade rumors, but he's still in Philly, so still should be productive there. Higbee will hopefully bounce back. We'll see, as will Moreau. So, again, good options at the tight end room, but none are, I'd say, steady at this point, but are unsteady for different reasons. And then defense is just there. 4 guys over 100 points at the end. Solid D tackle room. Again, could probably use one more linebacker, but isn't really hurting for it. Secondary is good. Like, there's a reason everyone has him as a favorite. Like, 38 players and no real weaknesses on his team right now. So, again, not also a big trader either. So, very optimistic. It'll be a question of how he deploys some of the draft capital he has.
I'm looking to see what picks he has right now.
He's got an early second. I think it's like 203.
211 is his earliest pick. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You traded 203 with something to get Buckner in 211.
Yeah, I mean it's a solid team. I do agree though, like tight end is kind of a question at this point. That's probably the only position that really needs addressing. Although safety and linebacker aren't as deep as you would assume. So one of those 3 positions will probably be addressed with that second round pick.
Yep. And again, I think it's probably going to be tight end, linebackers. But you could probably use the third on, especially considering how things are. But a lot to go there. I did not realize the team could be paid through 2028. So good on you, Ravens, for being. Oh, I guess Seahawks are also through 2028. But I truly appreciate the commitment to the league there. Again, Sam Darnold for $35 million. That was a terrible idea last year. And now it's like, oh, Sam Darnold for $35 million. That's not bad. Despite the fact that his deal in Seattle, I guess, is truly a 1-year deal. But look, he bounced back pretty solidly in Minnesota, so can't necessarily bet against the guy right now. Mason in Minnesota is an interesting landing spot. We'll see how that goes, but running back is a challenge. Again, of the teams I would see most likely to make a pivot to blowing it up, it would be Ravens, because he has some of those aging but still valuable pieces on offense. But you're seeing question marks start to emerge in positions that he really needs to be able to count on. Like, he doesn't have a running back 1 that he can count on right now. He has 4 running back 2s, but not a 1 at this point. So needs to fix that. Reek and DJ Moore, very solid. Demarcus Robinson got a big contract in San Francisco. Wicks seems to be one of those guys in Green Bay. But again, like he's got a lot of things where hope is a strategy for him right now because he doesn't have the tentpole that he really needs at a lot of these positions. So I'd love to see him make a move to break it up. But like I said, he could take this team and make the playoffs. So why get too crazy?
Yeah, it's really just, do you want to go for it this year or do you want to go for it for the next 3 consecutive years? As far as what pieces he wants to move, like Darnold, like you said, that worked out really well for him, which was surprising to, I think, just about everybody. Tyreek is starting to get up there in age. He's also on his last year of his contract, and he just, I believe, got a umpteenth domestic violence charge. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, a lot of win now pieces. It's just, are we going to parlay that into going for it all this year? Once the picks refresh after the draft, everybody's favorite day when new picks are available and there's a trading flurry, or is it going to be building for the next couple of years? So again, it's a Mexican standoff in that division. Who's going to blink first, as to who's going to actually step aside and plan for the future versus win now.
All right. So let's wrap it up with our defending champion, the Bengals, who, again, by doing nothing, good things happen. Burrow is there. Bijan and some Kansas City backs who basically the KC backs who aren't named bowling ball. Jamon Jennings might be one of the more valuable receivers that he has, especially locked in at $2 million now on a second contract. But also has Waddle and JSN, which is real nice. And then having Palmer as a fourth receiver is the right level for him in this league. Trey just got paid in real life, and he's going to get expensive for Bengals when the time comes. He's probably going to have to wait till the end of the season to extend him, but as some would say, that's future Bengals problem. The Dallas kicker has been a very popular player in trade negotiations for him this offseason and has been refused to be moved. And from what I hear, has had some interesting things offered for him. So that's always fun. And then the defense, like he's got multiple 150 plus, 200 plus point scorers at each position. Like the offense is good, the defense is probably even better.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. That is, he was the highest scoring defense last year, right?
I don't know.
I think it was pretty close, and I think it's safe to assume it be the exact same production next year.
All right, so we're sticking with collectively that the entire AFC North and then Texans, Jets, and Chiefs make the playoffs, right?
Yes.
We're kind of boring. I hate to say it. It's kind of predictable and kind of boring, but it's hard to have a much different take for any of those divisions right now unless people kind of step up and do some things here. But we've reached, like I said, that difficult season where people seem to be wanting to wait until after they have a little bit more certainty in the coming days. So those of us who are trade obsessed will continue to post, oh, we're looking for trades, and have the same 5 or 6 of us try and offer around the same 5 or 6 pieces, not making a deal until everyone else kind of gets back on board.
Yeah, that basically sounds like the off season.
All right, so I'll pull up the recent trades here. As mentioned, nothing truly earth-shattering except for maybe RJ's deal from the last week. But otherwise, it's kind of been smaller deals happening around the league. So going back, I think to Tuesday. So I think we have 10 deals that have happened. Browns moving, Browns acquiring Buckner in the 211 for Riley Moss, the 203, and Odio Ogbonia. Yeah. Like, Browns ran away with this. Hey, let me move back 8 points and give up a corner and Ogbonia for DeForest Buckner. Like, that's nobody who has the cap space is saying no to that.
Yeah, that seems like a solid get for Cleveland. Really, really low cost there. I would argue that Moss may be worth more than Ogbonia at this point.
I would agree.
He has not been productive in his 3 years, and I think a lot of us had pretty high hopes for him as a defensive tackle.
Yeah. I think he was on my team at one point, and I traded him for like a 5th-round pick. From what he's produced, not wildly off. Saints getting rid of some pieces here. They're in 4 straight trades, giving me Charlie Jones just to get him off the roster. Uses that roster space to consolidate further. Leonard Floyd and Jordan Whittington with the Rams' future first for Trayvon Walker. Right after Pierce picks him up to round out his D end room. Saints goes and picks him up using some pieces and an opportunity to consolidate. So I like it for both sides. Bears needs to pick up some depth in scoring and some assets he can continue to use to build out the team this year. And Trayvon, he's a good cornerstone piece, and Saints needs to be acquiring those.
Yep. Yeah, I thought this was a really good trade for Saints. I think it's great stuff that the Bears picked up, breaking down Walker into somebody that's going to give about the same amount of production as far as sacks, and getting a first on top of it. Yeah, I applaud it. It was well done by both teams.
So also well done by both teams. Patriots, again, trying to break down assets to build out a full starting roster. You, of course, moving some things around so that you have some new pieces in some of these positions and keep getting younger. Brock Purdy and Mac Jones joining the Eagles for Cooper Kupp, Caden Ellis, and the 107. I think it's a great deal. Ellis and Kupp had probably 2nd or 3rd round value at this point in terms of what they were getting moved for, plus the 107 to pick up Brock Purdy. So Pats gets good value for Purdy. You use the later of the 2 picks that you picked up to go get your quarterback. So you now have 3 and a later first to use to fill out some other pieces. And we're able to use not necessarily your most premium asset to go do it. So bravo to you for that one.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't think I could say it any better. You broke it down perfectly. Now I guess the draft starts at 3. We can get crazy.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably only about 15 quarterbacks in the league. 7's not going to pick you up. Otherwise, you could probably offer that around to kind of half the league and take the quarterback of his pick. Or he can continue to wait and see who he might be able to get on the cheap. So, again, he picks up some optionality, which is something that Patriots need a little bit more of.
Yep. And I do, like you had just mentioned, I do think this trade opens up a lot more as far as like when this happens, the 7 looks a lot better because it doesn't seem unreasonable that the second quarterback slides maybe that far, so he can always replace his quarterback. But it makes it where 3 is less likely to be quarterback 2, and then you're right after that at 4 and 5, and then Dolphins already has a quarterback. So there's a lot of speculation as to where quarterback 2 could ultimately go in the draft.
Yeah, and it very easily could be 7.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the Saints pivoting from Dwayne Carter and the 324 to pick up Vita Vea and my 26 fourth. Look, I mean, Vea is a 30-year-old defensive tackle who plays more, I'd say, the nose tackle position. Like, he's one of those guys that he's more valuable to an NFL team than a fantasy team. But that says when he shows up, he shows up. And you're like, wait, how does that guy not have 15 sacks on the year? And then you look at his stat line, he has 5 or 7 kind of every single year. So Vea is obviously the better player. I would wonder if the marginal value upgrade from my future 4th to a mid to late 3rd this year is worth that D tackle upgrade. But I know D tackle hasn't always been the most valuable position. So can't hate on him for picking up an upgraded piece for a low value. Shipping out Taekwon Lewis to the Bucks for nothing. And then Cowboys going from Jadavian County in 424 to Jalen Ramsey, and the Bears' future 3rd. I wanted to hate this at first, but the more I look at it, the more I'm just kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Like 424 for Ramsey, to me, makes a lot of sense. And the Bears' future 3rd for Jadeveon Clowney, like, this guy is not a DN you look at and you say, I feel good having you as someone I'm depending on for points every week. You want him as your 3rd or 4th defensive end. He's a little bit older, only had 5 sacks last year. This is the right value for him. So at first it's like, ew, but now I can kind of talk myself into it.
I can assess Clowney trades very well. I like him way too much. This is probably the correct value. And when I first looked at it, I was like, that's a really cheap Clowney. That was my initial reaction.
Yeah. Saints moving back from 13 and 307, 213 and 307 for Dalton Schultz, 318 and 415. So basically moving back around from a 2nd to a 3rd and a 3rd to a 4th, as well as probably a quarter of round for each on top of that to pick up Dalton Schultz. So I think it's reasonable value for Schultz. Kind of puts him near a mid-second. But again, it makes sense. And then Panthers moving out of Marshawn Lloyd and the 307 to me for 127, which I felt like was right value for Lloyd. He's kind of that. If you look at what's going to be there at 131 for running back, the big 5 are going to be gone. We're going to be on to that next bunch, and a lot of there might be 1 or 2 who's a late day 2 guy, kind of like a Marshawn Lloyd, and then we're going to be in the day 3 range. So I don't think what's going to be there at running back is going to be much different than Marshawn Lloyd. And frankly, I'll take someone attached to the Green Bay offense right now. So that was why I did that one. But again, Panthers pivoting for picks and Saints continuing to pick up depth on the cheap.
Yeah, I think both of those are fine. I like both parts of the Schultz trade. I think that's a fine value on Schultz. Your trade for Lloyd, I like it. I do agree. The prominent names, the guys that you expect to be starters or day 1 have a role. Most of them will probably be gone by 127. So getting somebody who was in a similar conversation last year and is probably going to be in a similar conversation come training camp time, plus a third round pick. I think that's fantastic.
Well, again, it works for both sides, which is where you want to be able to go. And then, last but not least, the Giants trading a DN and a safety to the Buccaneers as they move out of the 226 with two taxi theft players. Look, I feel like half the league saw a deal like this, and this is the one that got done. I don't know. I obviously prefer what the Buccaneers got to what the Giants did here. Because I'm a Niners fan and I like what Mustafa is doing. I think he steps into that job. And then Huff is going to have an opportunity to step up in Philly. Was injured for a good part of the year last year as a premier pass rusher. And Philly needs guys to step into those roles with, guys like Josh Sweat or others leaving. So, again, for 226 and two taxi squad guys, this is great value.
Yeah, I agree. I think people forget like that Bryce Huff, he was injured last year, right?
Yeah, I think
For some portion of the year.
Wasn't he involved in the Reddick stuff that like he was on the Jets and Reddick was on the Eagles, and then they swapped each other for them, and then Huff was going to play for the Eagles and Reddick was holding out for the Jets, and then Huff got hurt. Again, I forget. I don't.
No, Huff signed with them in free agency, if I'm not mistaken.
Very possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, he missed 5 weeks, torn ligament in his wrist, and was inactive for the Super Bowl. Okay. Yeah, it was always expected that they were just going to have 3, potentially 4-man rotation last year, and that contracts would toll this year and they would figure it out and there would just be less people. But for some odd reason, because we go through that year, everybody seems to forget that, and like his assumed value just completely bottoms out. And come week 1 when he's taking 53% of the snaps or something like that, like his value will be right back up there with the underpriced rotational defensive ends. And we'll look back at this and think that it was 2 guys worth a second-round pick for the price of 1 second-round pick.
Yep. So, hey, good deal if you can get it. That's the upside of sending some deals out. You find something you like, you send it out to 12 different teams, and all you need is one person to say yes to get what you need. So, that's the benefit of activity. But all right, last week we went almost an hour and 45. This week we went 55. So it's going to balance out. But look, if the AFC did more, or people had more trades that they were doing, we'd have more to talk about. But 'tis the dead season. We'll fight through it. Next week is hot take week and prediction week, and then we are into the draft. So. Any final thoughts from Eagles or Commanders on the AFC?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys joining and lending your thoughts to the podcast. As always, appreciate you guys for listening. And we'll be back again next week. Have a good week. And hey, let's keep those trades going again.